Yeah. At least 3 minutes, I could have done it, but we only have 1 minute.
All right. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is calling to order the City of Fort Walton Beach special meeting of the local planning agency on Thursday, January the 8th, 2026 at 5:30 p.m. Could we start with the Pledge of Allegiance, please? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And for audio purposes, typically, as your first meeting, it's asked for a roll call.
Okay. Okay, let's start with a roll call.
Steve Coates.
Robert Rennie. James McPherson.
Ton Wynn.
Jamie Seifert.
All right. Can I have a motion, please, for approval of the agenda?
Motion to approve their agenda.
Second.
Did I not vote? I thought I did. Is it hung up?
I second it. I don't know where we're at.
Oh, it looks like there's somebody there. It's not here.
Suspense is killing me. It was wrong vote again.
It says waiting on Mary Albright.
Yes,
I click end vote. There, I fixed it.
Okay. All right. Adopted. The approval of the agenda was adopted. And now, could I have a motion, please, for approval of the minutes from Thursday, December 4th, 2025?
Motion to approve the minutes.
Second.
Let's vote, please. And the minutes are approved. All right. Next order of business. Does not appear like that there is anyone here from the public, but if anybody wants to speak on behalf of someone who's not here in the public. All right. Seeing that no one is here from the public, we'll move on to item number 6, ordinances. First up is 6.120, the 2022 ordinance amending the comprehensive plan.
In our title.
Yes, sir.
In ordinance of the City Council of the City of Fort Walton Beach, Florida, amending the comprehensive plan of the city, providing for consistency, providing for severability, and providing for an effective date. This is a quasi-legislative hearing, and Mr. Tim Gibson is presenting on behalf of staff.
Hi, good evening. Tim Gibson, Growth Management Director for the city. So this is for an ordinance to amend our city's comprehensive plan. Just to kind of give you a little bit of a background on that. There's really two different ways that comprehensive plans are changed. One is through a voluntary process. We just did one about a year and a half ago. Some of y'all may remember when we were changing some density allowances and changing some of the manufacturing rules and stuff on there. The second types are when they're mandated by the state. So approximately every 7 years, we have to complete what's called an evaluation and appraisal report. What that report does is basically goes through our entire comprehensive plan and looks to see if we're still in compliance with all Florida statutes. because things change as the years go on. Certain times they will say stuff that the next change you have to institute this. Other times it's just whenever it's time to do that evaluation and appraisal report. We did do the year in 2024, the very end of 2024, identifying that there was one primary area that we were going to have to change to meet Florida statute. So previously they had required planning periods of a 5-year and a 10-year period, basically for planning out utilities and public works and all that kind of stuff, so what the impacts are going to be. They've changed that in the statute several years ago to be a 10-year and a 20-year planning period. So based on that, we had to make the changes into the comprehensive plan. At the time, we went ahead and just went through and made several other changes in here. We did go back and forth on this somewhat. The several local areas, other jurisdictions in the area have gone through one of these recently as well. Many of those were kicked back to the municipalities because it was not conforming with SB 180, Senate Bill 180, which has the more restrictive or more burdensome thing that's in land development codes and comprehensive plans. So we really tried to take this and make it as very simple as possible, not to try to get too complex with these things. The vast majority of the changes that we've gotten here are very minor changes. But for this one, so our current comprehensive plan was adopted. It's the 2019-2029 plan, was adopted on May 21st, 2019. It was approved by the Department of Economic Opportunity on July 24th, 2019, and it had an effective date of that. We did do, like I said, the one amendment on there, and then for this, we do have to do these changes in here. I figure what I can do, I can either go line by line over each of the changes on here, or I can just highlight kind of most of them are very minor, and then kind of go more a little bit in depth of the ones that aren't just quite so straightforward. So in element A, most of those were just minor changes in there. One of them, like the future land use, was CIE instead of CIU, just a typo. We fixed those kinds of things. Dates of the map in there. The language in A 2.4 talked about establishing a downtown design guideline. We've already done that and approved it, so basically took out some of the language in there so that it doesn't direct us to create one since we already have one.
I have a question about that particular paragraph. So that's policy 8.2.4, right?
A point 2.4, yes.
Okay, and it makes reference to, well, it doesn't make specific reference, but in policy 8.2.1, there's a chart that says, here's the different ratios of CIU, residential. It has mins and maxes. And in paragraph 8.2.4, it says that the redevelopment plan does not have to adhere to those standards. So it says the city has adopted downtown design guidelines based on the recommendations of the CRA, Those additional guidelines are beyond the minimum mandatory land development regulations, are intended to achieve a high level of design excellence consistent with the goals of the plan. And if you go, and I went into the CRA plan, and as of the April 2025 downtown planning guidance brochure, there is no reference to the standards that are established in the chart in 8.2.1. So I just wanted to ask a question that the CRA, as written here, has the authority to go beyond the parameters established in this plan.
That's a good question. So within the downtown design guidelines, so the CRA is a much larger area, but specifically within the downtown design guidelines, there was the with the CRA master plan and the downtown master plan, it did call in there for certain things that were not necessarily in line with this chart. The chart is for the city overall,
right,
not with the specific areas. So the higher densities we've got in there were really established to meet the downtown master plan guidance on the number of residential units they were recommending to be in the downtown area, the number of commercial. All of that stuff was based off of that downtown master plan that was developed years ago. So the downtown design guidelines, they don't have the same chart, But overall, as a city, we will maintain those
Okay.
numbers, if that makes sense.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Okay,
Yep.
that was my question on that.
All right. Let me get back to the... Okay, so, and then in policy 8.8.2, it called in there for a historic advisory board that basically will assist in submittal of nomination for historic sites. That is such a rare occasion. The city does not maintain that board, so we're just recommending that that just be deleted out of there. We'll handle those one-off. The most recent one would be Chester Pruitt Park. They were working to get that to be a historic site. The city worked with the group that was sponsoring that and everything, so we'll just continue to do those, I think, as a one-off, rather than trying to establish a board that's just not going to be very well utilized. In element B, we revised the language in policy B51, making the responsibility to explore acquisition and preservation of existing future rights-of-way from city staff. In there, I'm not sure exactly why it was written that way, but it said that you all will go out and try to find ways to establish rights-of-way. Obviously, anything like that would be run through the LPA and then on to city council, but just I thought it made a little bit more sense to change that into staff. We'll work on that. Element C, we're not proposing any changes for. In element D, we did revise the language in there for that 10-20 year that's required by the new statutes. Element E, we did eliminate policy E7.2. That called in there. There's several references in there to green buildings and green inspectors. Right now, we don't have anybody, to my knowledge, we've never had an inspector on staff that can do those inspections. I did talk to our building official about that. It's probably about a 3 to 4 year program to become certified to certify the green buildings. So most of you probably heard about LEED certifications and things for buildings. There's a lot of training to become LEED certified to basically even work on a project, but to be able to inspect those projects is much more in depth in there. We've not had a single application in my almost 6 years now with the city, so we're really just recommending that we delete that out of there, especially because we don't currently have one. In element EE, I'm sorry, yes.
So if something does come up,
It's,
do we reach out to another municipality and have them?
we can have a third-party inspector do those kinds of things. It's the same thing for, we call it threshold buildings, like 4 stories and stuff like that. They have to have a special inspector that cannot be our building official or our building inspector. There's a third party that comes in and does those inspections. We would be able to take a third-party inspection for that.
I just didn't know if we would turn away that service, you know what I mean? Somebody wants to do a green building and we're like, no.
Right. It's just, we're not going to maintain somebody on staff to be able to do that, but a third party could be able to do it.
Makes sense.
All right, so in element EE, we did just revise the language for current building code. In element F, we revised the language. It was referred to as the Temple Mound, where the official name now is Heritage Park and Cultural Center. In element G, that was another one we did for the 10 and 20 year planning cycles on there. In element H for capital improvements, there was a lot of work done in this one. We did fix a typo in there. There was referencing to the correct table number. It was listed as table H and it's table H.1. So just fix that minor thing in there. We also did another 10 year and 20 year planning period in there. Some other minor changes in there were the Okaloosa-Walton Transportation Planning Organization's Transportation Improvement Plan. It's just to match whatever that was with the OWTPO there. We did revise table H.1. Obviously, the capital improvement projects that were listed in there were very old. Most of those have been completed, so we just kind of updated it for the next 5 years capital improvement program projects in there. And then finally, we changed the language in there regarding the school board's facilities work plan. They now call it their capital improvement master's facility plan. So just change the language to adopt that. In element I, we did revise the language again for the 10 and 20 year planning period. We revised the economic history section for current references to the CRA plan and the comprehensive plan in there. For policy I 1.2, that was talking about a pilot entrepreneurship program. The city did actually start that program, and then it basically lasted for about a year and then kind of faded away without much interest in it. So we're just recommending to delete that out of there. Next is eliminating policies 1.1.3 and 1.1.4 regarding the commerce and technology part, as the CTP master plan does cover those things already in there. Next, again, we revised the language for a CRA date plan. We revised the language in 3.8 for the name of the Okaloosa Economic Development Council. For 3.3.9, we were, and there's going to be several of these you'll see in here where we basically removed some of the by dates. Obviously, you know, this was written in 2019, 2020, a lot of things changed, a lot of things shifted, a lot of priorities changed, and some of the stuff just did not get done by then. So for the first one on there, it's regarding establishing a program for push cart vendors in the landing. Right now, with all the construction going on in the landing and everything else that's happened, that just has not been done. So since it was already in the comprehensive plan, rather than trying to remove that and deal with SB 180, we're just recommending removing the by date on there, so that way it's in there and we can do it in the future if we want to. The next one, again, the by 2020 date, we're recommending removing. That's a bicycle program and a bicycle pedestrian action plan. The city is actually, right now, we've gotten grant funding for it's called a Safe Streets for All program, and basically it's a grant. They'll come in and they evaluate the entire city, all of our streets, look for where these key points are that maybe we need to work on some infrastructure on, better sidewalk, bike paths, whatever on there. So that grant, that study that's being done through that grant will actually give us a really good idea of what we need to do on that one there.
Are they looking at the whole city in general?
They are. So the county got a grant about a year and a half ago to do the SS4A study for all of the county, and it's been done. And they did look at certain areas like Highway 98, you know, the state roads really in our city, but they did not delve into the details of our city. So the city went out and they got the grant, and that's happening now. Let's see. Yeah, the next one was talking about the by 2019, again, a green local government status. It's not something that our public works or anybody has done with any of our facilities to work towards that. If it is something that council wants to do, obviously there's money and everything required behind those kinds of things. So we're just recommending, again, take the date out of that one. And then I.5.2, it did have in there, it talks about renewable energy and encouraging those, but it also had a line in there that talked about developing a target list of industries and potential sites by 2025. I think the city's kind of moved away from those things. We've changed our land development code to allow for ground-mounted solar. We obviously do a lot of the solar panels on roofs and stuff, so a lot of that renewable energy is out there. I just don't think the city's interested in going and finding sites and working to develop these things on sites across the city. So we're just recommending removing that out of there. We did change the landing park, updating the landing park name and removing by 2020. For the gateway thing in there are several CRA projects that are working on gateway type stuff. There's the new sign downtown. I'm not sure if you've seen it with the big paddleboard. So that's gone in there. We're also working on a gateway entrance sign over Vandergrift Park. So the CRA is already working on a lot of those things, so it's really just to kind of clean that up. We are recommending elimination of policy I.6.2. It talks about encouraging a military heritage tour. And it's not really something that's out there, and I'm not sure of anything that's going to be looking for that. There is later where it talks about some sponsorships, recognizing local veterans and stuff in there. We're going to try to keep that program. But as far as like a military heritage tour in the city, I really just didn't think that was anything that was feasible at this point in time. So we're recommending to eliminate that out of there. Next was language to, again, remove the date. It's talking about the Emerald Coast, Florida birding trail with that one. And they want us to basically get certain areas, trails and stuff recognized as a birding trail. That's something that honestly just has not had any work done on it.
Did you say birding?
Birding.
B-I-R-D-I-N-G.
Yeah. For people like bird watching.
Oh, bird.
Bird.
I thought you said bird. I was like,
Birding.
what's a burning trail?
Yep. So again, just taking the date out of there so that gives us time to work forward on there. And I anticipate there's a possibility in City Council they may want to add some specific dates in there. Right now, we're just going forward with the recommendation of removing them, but they may add completion date back into this one here. The next several are revised language, I-6.4, to remove the designated economic development representative will complete an essential studies and provide a report to the city council by 2016. Again, the projects are ongoing and things, so having some of these things saying reports will be completed by 2016, we're just removing out of there. And there was another one in there that we're recommending elimination about a culinary tours and highlights and stuff. The city's not really involved in any of that. Obviously, we got a lot of good food and everything in the area, but there's not really any kind of hot spots that the city's really trying to encourage or develop with any of that kind of stuff there. Next, again, the name of the Heritage Park and Cultural Center. And then there was a section about the boardwalk project, which was basically abandoned many, many years ago. If you're not familiar with that, basically the boardwalk from basically like the Presidio all the way down to the landing park, the vision was to have a boardwalk that entire distance. Obviously private property rights, easements, everything, it just became not really feasible to complete that. So that's just kind of been removed from there. Next was again to remove a date on there. It's talking about developing a waterfront strategic plan. I think a lot of that did tie in with the boardwalk, but it's still something we can take a look at working on a strategic plan for our waterfront area. Understanding that there's very limited stuff that we can do with that. The vast majority, other than Liza Jackson and the landing, it's all private property. So it's really kind of hard to develop a strategic plan for what these individual owners are going to want to do on their property. Next, I-73, property acquisition along the waterfronts is highly unlikely. These properties sell for millions and millions of dollars. I just don't anticipate the city would engage in any of that. However, we do already have a process out there. We have a realtor, a city realtor, through Realty House, that if it came down to it and we were trying to acquire properties, it could just go through the same process. It just doesn't really seem like we need to go out there and try to highlight properties we're trying to acquire when it's very unlikely that would happen. Next was I-8.2 to again remove the update the department name and remove the by 2019 and remove the pedestrian and. So this is what I was referencing earlier. It's basically says to develop a program that can recognize local veterans. And it's a process where through our Parks and Recreation Department you can sponsor certain park areas, and that's where it has pedestrian and park areas. So really the pedestrian areas, we weren't really sure where that was going to, if it's going to be a walkway in a park. Again, that just kind of falls under the park. So I worked with our new Parks and Rec director. He really likes the idea of this project, and whether it's going to be, you know, sponsoring a pavilion in a park or whatever, he's really going to start working on developing a plan for that one. And other than that, we did update all the maps that were part of the strategic plan, just because we were going through and making this update. And that is really the culmination of all the changes that were put in there. Like I said, they're very straightforward, most of them. It's just driven by the fact that we have to make this update at this time. And with that, staff respectfully recommend the LPA's recommendation to approve for City Council to adopt Ordinance 2022, amending the comprehensive plan.
Does anybody have any additional questions for Mr. Gibson? Seeing none. Can I make a motion as the chair, or is? Yes. Okay, you said some committees the chair can, so, all right. I'd like to make a motion that we accept the document as presented by our Growth Development Director and accept the 202 ordinance amending the comprehensive plan.
I'll second that.
And then before y'all vote, just say it on the record. Anyone from the public want to comment?
So is there anyone from the public that would like to comment on the motion? Seeing none. Next up on the agenda is 6.2, 2201 ordinance providing for a temporary moratorium on short-term rentals.
Okay, ordinance number 2201, an ordinance of the City of Fort Walton Beach, Florida, establishing a temporary moratorium on the enforcement of the requirements for short-term rentals set forth in Section 8.13 of the City Code of Ordinances, created by ordinance number 2181, providing for findings of fact, providing for a 6-month temporary moratorium, recognizing pending litigation over the constitutionality of SB 180, recognizing that the Florida legislature may consider a bill modifying SB 180 in 2026, providing for severability, providing for expiration of the moratorium on June 30th, 2026, and providing for an effective date. And this is a quasi-legislative hearing, and Ms. Amy Nelson's here to present.
Amy Nelson Wolf, Planning Supervisor. So as Jeff stated, Ordinance 2201, this is providing a temporary moratorium on a short-term rentals. So back on April 22nd of 2025, the City Council did adopt 2181, establishing the regulations for the short-term vacation rentals under the City Code of Ordinance, Section 8.13. But shortly after that, the Florida legislature adopted the Senate Bill 180, which was assigned into law on June 26, 2025. The SB 180 applies retroactively to August 1st, 2024 through October 1st, 2027, and may limit the city's authority to ensure certain local land development regulations, and including those of the short-term rental. So due to the retroactive application of the SB 180, ongoing litigation challenges are there, and also the potential for litigation, legislative amendments or repeal maybe later this year. I think what I had seen was maybe June or July, but possibly later this year, 2026. The city and staff attorney have evaluated the legal risk associated with enforcing the ordinance of 2181 at this time, and so we are recommending that the local planning agency recommend that the City Council adopt Ordinance 2201 to enact a temporary moratorium on the enforcement of the requirements for short-term rentals set forth in Section 8.13 of the City Code of Ordinance, which is Ordinance 2181, expiring on July 27th of 2026.
And one thing, before we go to the questions, the title, I caught this down, we'll fix it before it goes to the council, but in the title of the ordinance it says the moratorium ends on June 30th, 2026. So for the record, that's just a typo. The correct date is July 27th, 2026.
Well, I do have a question. So I sat through all the city council meetings when all of this ordinance was hammered out. So I would think the residents of Garnier Bay would be up in arms over the abeyance of this. So does the city have a prior ordinance that is in effect that regulates summer rentals in any way, shape, or form? Or we're back to the, as the Garnier Beach residents would say, the Wild West?
There's not this ordinance filled a gap that existed in the city's
Right.
code. So, unfortunately, because of the passage of SB 180, and the fact that the second reading occurred well after, almost 8-9 months after the effective date of SB 180, because it went retroactive back to August of 2024, it's not enforceable for that reason. And so staff has kind of had to sit back and say, we can't enforce it. And this makes it easier to say, okay, this is the reason it's not being enforced, because the council now has enacted a moratorium. So staff doesn't have to sit there and say the whole time we're not enforcing it because we can't legally enforce it. And this kind of provides a little bit more cover, I guess, for staff, because staff is not, staff had both my advice, the other, my predecessor's advice, and I think the advice of every single other local governmental entity who's kind of enacted anything in that time period is basically said, don't enforce anything that was passed during that time frame that could be at all arguably run afoul of SB 180. And so, and I've had some of the Garnier's Point residents talk to me during the council meetings since over the last couple of months. They've come up and spoke to me, so they're kind of aware that staff can't enforce it right now. And
So if the city had an ordinance prior to August of 2024, what was in that ordinance, let's say Destin or one of the Seagrove communities, whatever they wrote is enforceable?
Correct.
Okay, but only because we were in the same legislative window as the state, our ordinance is wrapped around the axle.
It is. And just so y'all know, if there is like currently a bill that Senator Gates has filed that has a good chance of passing to repeal SB 180 as it pertains to Escambia counties all the way over to Walton County, and they think it has a really good chance of passing. And so if that happens, that would actually happen prior to the expiration of this moratorium. The plan is, and we'll make this clear at the council meeting so all the residents of Garners Point know, that the plan would be if that happens, we won't sit back and, wait till the absolute end of the moratorium. If they say the effective date is sooner, we'll bring it back to end the moratorium sooner.
Right. So in the interim period, if residents have concerns, they would go through the same venues that they went through prior to the adoption of the ordinance, which would be code enforcement, police department, right? The standard stuff that we had, which was...
Noise complaints,
Yes.
things like that.
Right,
Yeah.
right, okay. So it's not like there's nothing they can do, it's just not effectively wrapped together in a comprehensive plan.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay. All right, I don't have any other questions, sorry for dominating the conversation. Anybody else? All right. You want to make a motion, Steve?
Yeah. So I will make a motion to adopt ordinance 2201 to enact a temporary moratorium on the enforcement of the requirements for short-term rentals set forth by section 8.13 of the city code of ordinances to expire on July 27th, 2026.
I will second.
And then just, again, for the record,
Oh, is anyone from the public would like to comment on the proposed committee action? They may speak now. Seeing no one? Whoop, whoop. Okay,
and trust me, Chairman Rennie, I feel silly having asked you to do that,
No, no,
but it's one of those things
I
where
understand
the minutes don't reflect the fact no one's
Right,
sitting out here,
right,
so
right.
it's...
Okay. All right, that brings us up to agenda item 6.3, 2194, ordinance amending the LDC section 5.04.11, community residential homes.
Okay, and this is ordinance number 2194, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Fort Walton Beach, Florida, creating section 5.04.33 of the Land Development Code to update procedures for the review and approval of certified recovery residence requests to comply with Florida statutes, provide for authority, provide for severability, and provide for an effective date. And this is a quasi-legislative hearing, and Ms. Amy Nelson will present on behalf of staff.
Okay, as stated, the ordinance 2194, this is adding section 5.04.33, certified recovery residence, to the Land Development Code to ensure compliance with the state law. And the state law was updated back on June 26, 2025, section 487 of Florida statute. This was requiring the municipalities to adopt procedures for the review and approval of the certified recovery residents by January of this year. Basically, this is putting into compliance, like I said, the review and the approval process. We originally, back in November, went over this. There was section 5.0.4.11, which is the community residential homes section, that we were actually going to in place the certified recovery residents into that. But it went to council in December, and at that time, council members showed concerns for the removal of requirements and restrictions. So it was sent back for staff and, of course, the work of the city attorney to revise that. So we are keeping section 5.04.11 the same with the community residents, but adding section 5.04.33. At this time, staff recommends the local planning agency recommend that the city council adopt ordinance number 2194 to bring the land development code into compliance with the amended state law.
I just had one question. So it says right here that a certified recovery residence shall not be established within 1,000 feet of any other certified recovery residence. And occasionally we're putting these in R1 rated homes. Is that's feasible?
Yes.
Right, so we don't want to have two houses next door to one another on the same street? Is that what the
No, according
1,000
to,
foot restriction would be?
yeah, according to to what our land development code is stating, we do not.
Okay.
And this is to be similar, so the community residential homes, which if you get into the minutia, what's a community residential home and what's a certified recovery residence, they seem like they're similar, but they are slightly different. The community residential homes classification already has that 1,000 foot restriction.
Yes.
So to make it consistent, we put that in there because council kind of showed concern about, a lot of these popping up and getting clusters. Yeah.
I didn't have any other questions. Anybody else have questions for? All right, okay. You want to make a motion?
I would make a motion to approve ordinance 2194, amending LDL sections 5.04.11, community residential homes.
Is there anyone from the public that would like to comment on this action? Seeing none?
Who seconded?
I'll second.
Oh, I thought Jamie did.
All right, ordinance item 6.3, 2194 is adopted as presented. That brings us to item 7.1, LPA rules and regulations review.
Basically, this is the fun part of the evening. The local planning agency is going to go over and review and discuss any updates. I know it was sent back out sometime this past month, a copy of the rules. If you need a copy, we do have some here that I can pass around. You need one? Okay.
I left mine at home.
You need one as well?
That's it. Thanks.
Correct.
Appreciate it.
I'm good. For the minutes, there are no members of the public that have requested a copy of the LPA proposed rules.
And I guess we didn't receive any feedback yet from the board. I anticipate maybe we'll get a little bit here, but some of the changes, because I was also asked to go over it too, and so I'll kind of go through things I think that should be changed, and if y'all want to make those changes, obviously we can maybe just do one vote to make all the changes I recommend. But the first thing would be under section 2, officers, members, and duties. Subsection B, I would erase the entire second sentence that says the secretary of the board shall be a designee of the city manager. And it's no offense to our current city manager, but I can tell you probably no city manager has ever taken the time to have a designee to be the secretary of the board. The kind of the quasi-secretary for every board is the clerk's office. And I talked to Ms. Barnes, I was like, we can either change it to city clerk or just erase it, and I didn't know if you had a preference or not. So I'd say just erase it that way. Little things like that can confuse people down the line. Okay. And then the next change I would make would be under subsection E of that same section 2. The first sentence says the chair and vice chair shall be voting members of the board, but you might remember we had the whole confusion over Mr. Rennie, and we had to do the flip-flop for Mr. Rennie. And so I think to clear that up, just so that mistake's not made again in the future, adding a comma after the word board and to state and may not be alternate members will just be a good reminder that don't elect an alternate member to be the chair or vice chair. And so that's the next change I would recommend making. Then if you go to the next page, subsection 4, meetings, subsection B, it says special meetings may be scheduled as necessary with no less than 10 days calendar notice. I would get rid of the with no less than 10 days calendar day notice, because that's really more of a notice provision. Like if we had to cancel, let's say a quorum did not show up, and we were trying to pass a land use ordinance, we would have to republish anyway, at least 10 days out. But there might be a situation where, like I can't think of something right now, but it could happen where maybe a quorum doesn't show up for a variance hearing, and it's a contentious variance, and we can get everyone back in 5 or 6 days later. To put a requirement in there that says with no less than 10 days calendar day notice would be restrictive, and so I would say get rid of that right there, because it'll offer flexibility in that odd situation if there's not a quorum. Because I'll again say this, y'all are the best LPA board I've ever seen, because some cities have a real issue with having quorums on some big hearings sometimes.
Jeff, I have a question.
Yeah.
Is that 10 days, is that for public notice?
It is. So it's in there to build in for public notice, for usually like a publication type of notice for a certain thing.
So if we call a special meeting, is that saying that there's not a set time that the notice, the public doesn't have to be notified?
Correct. And so, and how that's handled under the statute anyway, under Florida statutes, is if y'all set a meeting and everyone shows up for the meeting, but there's not a quorum, well, everyone had notice of the meeting to show up. And I'm talking about the public. Like, the public had notice. So the public's presumed to know that they'll hear at the meeting, if let's say 3 of y'all were here, and you're like, well, let's reschedule this. We got so-and-so on the phone. They said everyone can be here next Wednesday or next Thursday. So that's 7 days out. The public is generally put on notice then. The city would still do the notice online and all that too, but that kind of meets that notice requirement in a pinch. And so, and then the next subsection E of the same section, the last section says strict adherence to Robert's Rules of Order shall not be required. But actually, after talking to Kim, I think actually maybe we should leave that in there at this point, because sometimes if y'all ever were to make a mistake under Robert's rules, we don't want someone to be able to sue the city in a variance hearing for a minor mistake.
Right, or saying that it had to be redone, right?
Correct, correct.
Okay.
And y'all do a great job anyway of really adhering. Now the biggest section that we kind of need to clean up is subsection 6, the alternate board member section, because right now the way it's worded, it's not how everything's actually been handled in the couple years I've been helping y'all out. And because the way it reads right now is the alternate board members are supposed to sit out in the crowd, but the way y'all handle it is everyone sits up here on the dais, and that's fine. But so I'd say we take that part out that says they'll remain in the audience. But I do think we need to make it clear that if an alternate board member is sitting up on the dais, then this is where it'll get a little tricky. And I was talking to Kim beforehand on the logistics of it, but we think we can get it worked out. By default, alternate board members will not be able to vote. But if they're actually going to be needed to vote at that meeting, that will get turned off so they can vote. Because I guess how it's been handled, and I didn't know this, but I guess all 9 votes theoretically come in at some meetings, and I'm not sure that 9 of the individuals have voted on it, and technically only 7 are supposed to be voting. And so what will happen is, it does say right here, I think we should leave something in there about the alternate board members will be rotated on the voting power. So, but I think y'all should, I would assume y'all would like the alternate board members to still sit up on the dais, right? Is that, so to do that, but I think it needs to be made clear in here that they cannot vote
Unless if they're needed for a quorum.
A quorum, and for quorum, exactly. And that's for a quorum, not if there's, well, I guess I wanted to leave that up to y'all. And do y'all want it to be for a quorum, or if there are 6 members here, then one can fill in for the absent member, so there's still 7? That's,
Let me ask you this. So there's 3 of us here, or normally when notices go out that there's gonna be a meeting, do we tell you if we're gonna be at the meeting or not? I know sometimes we get an email that says, hey, are you gonna be present at the meeting? And I know I've a couple of times I'm like, no, I'm gonna be TDY or whatever.
Yeah, I always email if I'm not coming.
It's nice to know because, like, I know it says too, another thing is the alternate, the alternates are supposed to come to the meeting.
Yeah.
But we have had in the past an alternate say, well, if you don't need me tonight, I'm not coming. So unless everybody tells us, that whether you're coming or not, we don't know if that alternate is needed.
So I don't wanna put more on your plate because your plate is already over full. But is there anything that says that you send us an email that says, hey, are you gonna be there? And then we click yes or no, which allows you to then reach out to the alternates to be like, hey, are you guys available? Just to make sure that we have enough people up here for the thing. And if we don't, then you'd be like, hey, we need to postpone this meeting for whatever reason.
and we could put something like that in there. Kim, would you want that in the rules?
Yes, and when usually the few that do respond, they do it from the email that Amy has been sending out with the agenda that says, here's the meeting. So that's kind of the reminder, I believe, that would help when you guys get that. If you know that you're not coming, you can respond back to, us that you can't come.
But if we put it in the rules that say, hey, you must provide an answer whether you're gonna be at the meeting or not. I don't know if that's encroaching on people's personal time or whatever, but I take this as a official meeting. I need to be here, and if not, it's because
I don't mind
I'm
it.
somewhere else.
Personally, I don't mind it one way or the other. I know when Tim used to do it all the time, he'd send it out and ask for yes or no's. And I haven't been getting them, but I usually would just, if I'm not gonna be here, I
Yeah,
would
that's
say
what
something.
I-
I didn't bother if I was coming.
Just for clarification, so I would always just send out, hey, we're having a meeting.
Yeah.
And then if I would get, I'm not gonna be there, I'm not gonna be there, I'm not gonna be there. I'm like, hey, let me know that you are gonna be there. Because that was really the only time I would really kind of go back out there is if I got 3 people canceling on me. Okay, we got 4 more. I need to make sure we're gonna have this quorum and stuff. So that's why I would usually go back and do that. But like Mr. Bird said, y'all have always been, I don't think we've ever had to cancel, since I've been here, cancel a meeting because we didn't meet quorum and stuff. So, but that's why sometimes I would reach out and ask you to confirm you're gonna be there.
Well, Jeff was talking about turning on and turning off.
So what I'm talking about there, I've probably got too much in the weeds. So I think y'all still would like the alternate board members to be afforded the opportunity. They show up to sit up here on the dais.
100%.
So what Kim can do and Nick can do is they can have it set up by default. The alternate board members, when they sit at their position, their computer will not let them vote, but they can still take part in the debate. So they're like Puerto Rico. This is where I think we need some direction from y'all. If one board member, like a normal board member, does not show up, then does one of the alternate board members get to sit in immediately and vote, or would you want it to only be if there's a quorum situation, like Ms. Seifert?
In my opinion, if there's only 3 of them and there's 4 alternates here, I would just say let the alternates vote.
That's how as far as I can remember, that's how we've done it in the past. It is, as long as there was not 7, the alternate sat and voted.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'll make sure that's clear in here, then to keep it that way and not the quorum way. But now to get back into the whole, it's not being mean to them to turn off their voting. If the 7 regular board members are here, it's going to create confusion in the future if the alternate board members are voting, because I think the way their software is set up, that'll show them voting on it, and there could be a situation where maybe a variance passes on a contentious issue, and it's hard to figure out who was actually you can't count the alternate board members.
Yeah.
They can't make a motion or second either. That's the other problem too, if the 7 regular board members are here.
I would just say if they're not in a voting capacity, then, I mean, it's just my opinion, they probably shouldn't sit up here. But if they're in a voting capacity because they need to be here, then by all means, let them vote.
I agree.
Let there be a vote.
So if you
And
agree,
especially the times that we have people that come, the people that they see sitting up here should be the voting people.
so that's two that want to do it that way. I'm seeing a lot of head nods. I see two more. Mr. Nguyen, do you agree too?
I agree.
So-
I mean, especially since there's not enough seats up here for both alternates.
That's true. So what we'll have to do is, again, go back to kind of, I'll also clean it up to make it clear, but they are not supposed to take the dais. Then if all 7 regular board members are here, they'll need to sit out there. So,
Right. But it would be 6 and 1 and 5 and 2, right? Is that what you're saying? If there's 5 regular board members and we want 7 people sitting
They
here?
could both alternates can be seated.
Come up?
Yeah.
Because you only need, what, four voting members?
That's true. So y'all could either do it that way. If there's only 3 of y'all here, then we only call one alternate up to be.
Yeah.
Well, we've
I
already
agree.
blown that because I'm technically an alternate now.
So,
And I've already voted and made a
so
motion.
that's the thing. But right now we're operating under, we haven't clarified that yet. so.
We're operating under the way it's always been.
Yeah. So y'all would actually rather have it to where the alternate only is required if there's not a quorum? Like they only would get called up to take part in if,
I
so,
would like to see it if it's, unless it's less than 7. And if you don't have the full board, the full 7, I think you should seat an alternate. Because there's been a few times where we've had 4 or 5, and it was a pretty close vote. It was one vote, and I think if you had a few more people, a few more questions, it would have probably.
I think the more
But are
votes, the
you
better.
saying the alternates' votes shouldn't count? if
They don't
we're doing
get
a
to vote.
variance?
they should not count going forward. Like they should not.
They should not count, so then therefore they should not get a vote, right?
Right, yeah, they would not need to be voting.
In my opinion, they shouldn't be sitting up here unless they are gonna vote. Unless they have the power to push the button that says, yes,
Okay.
I agree with this.
I agree.
And then-
Because it's confusing to the public, to me.
And then going back to the thing, and so but they'll be allowed to sit up on the dais, like Mr. McPherson's doing right now. If there's 2 or 3 people absent, then they can come and get seated, even though there's not a quorum. Or that is a quorum if there's 4 of y'all here. So okay, all right. So
And vote, I mean, is that the?
Yeah.
and vote, yeah. So that's okay.
Can an
Yeah.
alternate participate and vote if they're needed for a quorum?
Yes. Yes.
So their vote would count.
Yes. And also, but not just a quorum, the way the rules are going to read is if, let's say, 6 of the regular members show up to the meeting and one of the alternates shows up, then they can actually come up and be seated and vote as well and take part.
And their vote will count.
The vote will count, correct. So, but there's only, at any one time, there's only going to be 7 voters, I guess.
Which is covered in the next section.
Yeah.
And 7 seated. You don't ever want the 8 up there because
Right.
like you said, if
Yeah.
they're not voting, they don't.
Right.
Right,
It
okay.
just creates confusion. Because I would be like, why am I sitting up here if I don't have any power? I can sit down there and listen.
But here's where
And
the
still
confusion.
participate.
Well,
I came
that
one
would be
time
fine.
and I was an alternate and I sat, and Tim made it clear that you can still
Part of the conversation?
be part of the conversation.
Just like the public does.
So
Yeah.
we'll definitely need to get rid of the second sentence then of subsection 6, or 6B, because it says alternate board members shall sit with the board if space allows and shall be allowed to participate in discussions as a non-voting member in the conduct of the meeting. So I think we want to get rid of that because they should only be seated on the dais if they're able to vote. I think it's
Yes.
the only. That's all I had.
Sorry. To go back to the email notification of whether we're going to be here or not, are we going to do that or not do that?
I'll add that. Do you want?
I didn't hear it, I'm sorry.
So whether we're going to be, like when you send out the email that says, hey, we're going to have a meeting, do you want it in here that we have to reply to you that says, hey, we're going to be there or not? That way you know whether to notify the alternates that, hey, we need you at the meeting, and if not, if we don't have enough here, we move the meeting.
It helps, but I don't know if that's something that's legitimate.
We'll put that in there, and but you know, if we need a quorum and the fourth person shows up and they didn't email back, I think we still would go forward with the meeting.
Yes, agreed, but it's.
I think it's having like a rule in there to kind of let everyone know in the future that we need to abide by that, if y'all are okay with that.
Yeah, so
I mean,
that-
it says indeed that alternate board members are supposed to come the same way as we are anyway, so.
already
the
says they're
thing
required to
earlier
come.
that-
Yeah, I think they leave that in
Somebody's
there.
not gonna come if they're not needed, when you kind of, yeah, you're still supposed to come, you volunteered for this, and this is.
So we have 7 board members and 2 alternates, right?
Correct.
Where's the other alternate?
So did you get notification that the people that are not currently at the meeting were not going to be at the meeting this evening?
I already received one from Tom, the alternate.
Right, so
Everybody else knows.
my thoughts are that under meeting attendance, section 5, do we add a paragraph B that says, upon receipt of the meeting notification, the LPA member will indicate that they are planning to attend the next meeting
Or not.
or
So-
not attend the next.
So what does absences shall be handled in accordance with land development code? What does that mean?
Off the top of my head, I don't know the number. I think it's 3 maybe.
I wanna say it was
If it's 3 unexcused in a row, then there's a process that the council can call you before to start a disciplinary process to remove you.
Yeah, it's the same with all the boards, basically. If you start having unexcused absences, there is a certain number, I don't know the numbers off the top of my head, in a 12-month period or so many consecutive, you can just be removed from the board because you're just not, and that's unexcused absences. So if you're traveling or something like that and you let us know, then that's an excused absence. It's just when you no-show, 3 in a row, it's like, well, maybe we need to find somebody who's actually going to show up and stuff like that.
So we
But I don't
have
think we
3
know that
unexcused
problem.
absences today. There's 3 today that let no one know that they weren't coming.
But if we had an email that said, hey, you need,
Yeah.
or a rule that said, hey, you need to let,
And I don't think, let's find a Miss Wilson, maybe she had like a last second emergency.
Yeah,
I think that would be also be
We'll work with
excused.
people, maybe you got a car wreck on the way here. Things happen, but yeah.
Yeah. It's, the attendance rule is more for the person who goes radio silent for 4 or 5 months, and doesn't show up, and no one can get a hold of them type of situation.
And if we were having trouble, like you said early on, we've never had trouble with you guys showing up for a quorum. So if we were having trouble, we'd probably be a little more conscious and strict on that and bring it up. But because we haven't had a problem, we just kind of,
I guess from my perspective, like, I don't know who's an alternate and who's like a permanent member. Like, on our things here, it doesn't
It's
say.
on the, if you look on the, like, the minutes from last time.
Oh, it
it's
does.
listed
That's listed? Oh.
Under call to order on the minutes of last time, it lists, it tells who we are.
Is that the
Yeah,
change
there's
or
2 minutes from
those two?
the last meeting. So, I mean, that,
Okay.
it's usually the first page after today's agenda is the minutes of the
Okay.
last meeting, and it will list.
so now it'll be Mr. McPherson and then whoever the second one is, Tom?
Tom, yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
All right. Do we need to make a motion then saying that we approve adoption as amended based on tonight's discussion, or we're just going to proceed?
How about we'll add all these changes in and bring it back at the next meeting, and then y'all can say that adopt at that point, and then that gives you another month to think about anything you want to add to it, if we worded it how you wanted it worded. So-
Okay. Does anybody from the public have any additional comments they'd like to make pending the discussion we had on our internal rules? Seeing none. We're up to item number 8, which is director reports.
Actually, I got one more thing I want to recommend in here, and I apologize. We talked just about an hour ago about, is there anything else? But I remembered one thing that just came up previously. This is under section 2, subsection E. There is a line in there that confused some people previously. The chair and vice chair shall have the privilege of discussing all matters before the board. The intent behind that language is you're able to discuss at the board, not prior to the board. Sunshine laws in there. I really think we should just clarify that and clean that up a little bit. Basically the
Actually, we need to
So we
erase
just
that.
take it out?
Let's take it out, because
Yeah.
that's already presumed anyway.
Some people were interpreting that as, you, Mr. Rennie, can have conversations outside of the board at sunshine. law.
Prior ones, I
Yes.
did, I thought, oh, okay, violation of sunshine law, or it doesn't apply to this board.
Well, and And one other comment I'd like to make too, about, you said about the alternates being required to come. It's very helpful because the way we rotate are, when someone rolls off of the LPA, then the person who's going to fill in full-time is then a regular member. So attending meetings and, being aware and learning about the rules and everything that go along with it, that's a good thing for the alternate to do, is be at those meetings and learn what's happening. That's how they get their experience to be ready to step into that regular position. So,
And the same reason, I think that's why we need to do it how Mr. McPherson's currently doing it. Because if you get someone who's new, they can maybe, in that first year as an alternate, participate actually 2 or 3 times too, and kind of get their feet wet.
Okay, any board member reports? Item number 9.
I don't have a report, I just have a question for Tim, or for anybody. So this crab shack that's right here, has the county or the city looked at putting in an overpass, like walkway overpass? And the reason why I ask is, in the last probably couple of months, I've almost hit a pedestrian because they just walk out in the road to get over to the crab shack. And during busy season, when it's bumper to bumper traffic out here, it's gonna, I don't know if there's ever been an accident there, but
Well, there's not even a walkway.
There's not a crosswalk.
There's not a crosswalk.
They did put up signs, flashing signs.
Is it one that you can push, like that's further down, one you can push that?
I think so. I have not gone out there specifically to see them. I know there was discussion in the past about possibly doing that, but since the state,
It's a state road. We've approached them because we're aware of that. People like to play Frogger, not a fun game in real life, and everything. So yeah, we've talked to them about it. They do not do the overhead passes typically anymore. DOT is just as a standard is against those. I think probably elevation and vehicle sizes and stuff like that, I'm assuming is why they're against them. But ultimately it's a state road and it's up to the state to do that. The crosswalk that is out there, it does have the button where you can push it and go across there. Frankly, the state put that in, and I noticed it one day when I came into work.
Yep.
Where did that come from? Our public works was not involved in it, we were not involved in it, the state came out there and put that in there. So honestly, I think that's about the best you're gonna do.
okay.
If people cross at that crosswalk, because I've gone over there several times, whether it's to go to the park over there or the shack or whatever on that side for business, and I hit the button and vehicles have stopped for me. I've seen some people hit the button and walk. I'm not going to do that. I've had some people actually stop me when they hit the button over there. But yeah, the overpass, I mean, it's been like 5-6 years since we've approached DOT on doing like an overpass over there, but they're not interested.
No, I mean, the one downtown seems to work, right? So I didn't realize they put one out there.
Yeah, I remember that coming.
I press the button, people stop before.
Yeah,
Well, they don't always stop.
You just need the front ones to stop.
yeah, right. That's all I have.
Okay, thanks. Anybody else have questions?
I do have a question. As part of the sidewalks and all that renovation, has anybody, is there any discussion about Brooks leading to downtown? Like, I'm curious as to when we're looking at making it more walkable. Of course, I live in that neighborhood, but that's my question.
Is that the round mound plan? Probably around.
Well, I'm just talking about, like, it'd be nice to have a sidewalk, even if it started at where Waynell hits Brooks, some kind of pedestrian path from there to downtown after the bridge is done. There's a lot of people that walk and push strollers and jog, and it's very busy.
So the sidewalk starts at Magnolia?
No, it stops at the end of those townhouses on the water.
Where Magnolia?
Yeah.
Yep. So yes, there's a plan. When is that going to happen? I'm not exactly sure. If you're talking about getting from the neighborhood, getting into downtown on Brook Street there, yeah, the plan is to have a sidewalk in there. They've even talked about putting like a multi-use path in there for like golf carts and stuff like that as well.
There's a lot of golf carts,
I'm not sure which one it's going to be. My guess is going to be back to a 2-lane road, and golf carts or whatever can just utilize that if they're licensed to do so with the sidewalk in there. the larger plan and the mobility and everything down there to make it more walkable. There's, what's right now at Miracle Strip Parkway is planned to go to one lane of traffic each direction with on-street parking and large sidewalks on the outside. So that way the pedestrians are protected by the on-street parking in there, as well as some planters along that area. Doing some more of the same thing on Brooks, obviously not as much. It's not as wide of a right of way there. We have as much room to work with, but that's all waiting on a roundabout. So
I was
once
just
that
curious.
actually does that, not a main highway through there, we've got a lot of room to do a lot of work on there to just make it more pedestrian friendly down there.
All right, thank you.
Is that come out of the city funding or is that coming out of the state funding because it's a state road?
So the roundabout is gonna be, well, the funding comes from wherever we can get it. A lot of times there's grants and stuff that are out there for this sort of stuff. Certain things, I know the city has put forth, I believe it's $1 million total towards the PD&E study. That was just to get it to there, because a lot of times the state's like, okay, well, this is gonna cost $6 million. What are you willing to give us? And frankly, the municipalities or jurisdictions, counties, whatever, that are willing to put money towards it, basically that's us saying, look, this is an important project to our city. They tend to take it a little bit more seriously at that point once we're trying to pony up some money with that.
I'd say though,
The grants and everything for that, we tried for a grant last year that was gonna fully fund the planning phase of, which is the next stage after the PD&E. The county actually was gonna own, there was I think it was $175,000 each that the county would pay and the city would pay, and the county was willing to pony up the money for that match on that grant to fund that next phase. Unfortunately, we didn't get picked up for the grant for that one.
so the construction is going to be the state, though. It's going to be like a couple $100 million, right?
Yes.
So that's the
Around
city.
now,
Yeah.
what we're doing in Brooks
Yeah.
and Main Street, or whatever you want to call it, what's currently 98, what's going to become the Main Street once a roundabout goes on there, that's going to value more local funded grants and stuff like that. So it just depends, but yes, all of right-of-way acquisition and property acquisition and actual construction, that's all DOT.
But if it gets approved, it'll move, it'll start moving, like it'll happen. And it's just, it's hoping it gets approved, I think, at this point.
Yeah, it's really high up. I think right now it's number 3 on the Transportation Planning Organization's priority listings. So, which is good. Right now, it's the highest ranked non-funded project on there. So, it's possible. Obviously, it's going to be many millions of dollars, and I'm not sure exactly the timeline or whatever that's going to be for them to get that. It's not going to be later this summer. It's not going to be next year. It's not going to be the year after that. It's going to be a ways down the road, but it's still pressing forward.
Are you guys seeing anything coming down the line having to do with Main Street that is going to affect the LPA, like rezoning of properties or any of that stuff?
Not really.
No.
So we did create the MX3 zoning district previously. Most of y'all were involved in that. That allows for that higher density and everything downtown. That was really just to create the framework for it. We're not really moving forward to change any of those things at the time.
Council has indicated, though, which y'all might actually see a lot of this, if the SB 180 gets repealed for our area, I think they're going to kind of aggressively make some changes, just under the assumption that another SB 180 type of legislation might pass, like if a hurricane hit. If they repeal it, and let's say the effective date of the repeal is May or June of this year, and a hurricane hits here September, October, then there's going to be a very narrow window to do some rezoning. And I know they had some ideas that they were cooking, trying to kind of bat around 6 or 7 months ago, that they are kind of just waiting to see what happens with SB 180. So y'all will see some of that.
Ultimately, I mean, with the rezoning and everything, I don't know that even an SB 180-like thing right now, we're not prohibited from rezoning. Because ultimately right now we did change it, so I don't want to go too in-depth and muddy the waters here and stuff. So the comprehensive plan allows for a much higher density that land development code does not. So we did create the MX3. However, the development criteria for MX3 is exactly the same as MX2, including the density. What we didn't want to do, there's certain things for the Live Local Act that allows people in the city to build at the highest available density within the city. So even though we didn't have anybody zoned MX3, we didn't want to put that density in there because then somebody else could come in and be, oh, under Live Local, I'm going to use that density. So right now, it's all low. So theoretically, we could change zoning right now, and that's a possibility that we may do that, because what they're trying to do from preliminary discussions with council is kind of maybe narrow that down. When we did MX3, we created certain areas that, or the allowable businesses in those districts, we kind of changed that, maybe, kind of locked it down a little bit more for some of the things that we didn't necessarily want in our core downtown area that we would allow in other MX2 districts and stuff. So some of that might be coming in the future. That would probably be considered more restrictive or burdensome and not allowed in there. But the rest of SB1, the rest of the MX3 zoning districts and stuff is actually increasing it, so it would not be an issue in there.
And gas stations, storage units, car washes, those type of things, yeah.
Something
That'd be-
like a community garden.
Community
That's not, we want our core downtown here. Stuff like that that was really just didn't make sense.
Community garden, that's pretty fun.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Gibson. All right, anybody else have